The morning Emma Mitchell failed to open her bakery, the whispers started before the sun fully rose over Millbrook's Main Street. Third day this week, Mrs. Patterson announced to anyone within earshot at the post office. Something's not right with that girl. Emma had always been the town's golden child, the woman who'd turned her grandmother's struggling bakery into the heartbeat of their small community. Her cinnamon rolls brought people together every Sunday morning, and her smile could melt the frost-off December windows. But lately, that smile had become rare, strained. Daniel Mitchell sat in his pickup truck outside their two-story Victorian, watching his wife through the bedroom window. She was gripping the dresser, her knuckles white, trying to pull herself upright. His chest tightened as she stumbled, catching herself against the wall. 6 weeks. It had been 6 weeks since she'd first mentioned the weakness in her legs, laughing it off as overwork. For weeks since he'd watched her collapse in their kitchen, alone, thinking he was still at his construction site. 3 weeks since the first doctor's appointment she'd made him promise never to mention. He climbed out of the truck and headed inside, taking the stairs 2 at a time. He pushed open the bedroom door gently. She was sitting on the edge of their bed now, fully dressed but trembling with the effort. Her auburn hair, usually pulled back in a neat ponytail, hung loose around her face. Even struggling, she was beautiful. The same girl he'd fallen in love with at 17, the woman he'd married at 22, the partner who'd built a life with him brick by brick. "I'm fine," she said automatically, but her voice cracked. Daniel crossed the room and knelt in front of her, his calloused hands gentle on her knees. "You're not fine, and that's okay. Daniel, please. Not today." Tears welled in her eyes. "I just need one more day to figure out how to tell people. One more day before they all start looking at me like I'm broken." He moved beside her on the bed, pulling her against his chest. "You're not broken. You're sick, and we're going to fix it." But Emma pulled away, standing shakily. "You don't understand. This town, they already think something's wrong. Yesterday, I heard Cheryl telling someone at the grocery store that I looked rough, and that she'd seen you leaving late at night. They think we're having problems, Daniel. They think you're. Let them think whatever they want. Easy for you to say. You're not the one they're watching like a sad reality show." Daniel stood, frustration flickering across his features. "Then let me tell them. Let me explain." "No." Emma's voice rose, then broke. "Please. I need to handle this my way. I just need more time." Outside their window, old Mr. Brennan walked his terrier past their house, slowing his pace to peer up at their bedroom. Daniel watched him through the curtain, jaw clenched. Time was the one thing they didn't have, but he'd give her whatever she needed. Even if it meant watching the town tear them apart with speculation while he kept the truth locked inside, a secret that grew heavier with each passing day. The rumors intensified like wildfire in drought season. By the second week of Emma's absence from the bakery, Millbrook's gossip mill had crafted a dozen stories, each more scandalous than the last. Some claimed Daniel was having an affair with the new waitress at Murphy's Diner. Others whispered that Emma had run off with a supplier from the city, that she was hiding bruises, that their marriage had been a facade for years. The truth was far simpler and infinitely more complicated. Emma stood in their bathroom, the door locked, staring at the bottles lined up on the counter. Anti-inflammatories, muscle relaxants, medications she couldn't pronounce. The neurologist's words echoed in her mind. A rare autoimmune condition attacking your neuromuscular system. Without treatment, the weakness will progress. She gripped the sink, willing her legs to stop shaking. Through the door, she could hear Daniel moving around the bedroom, his footsteps careful, measured. He'd started sleeping in the guest room 3 nights ago, not because he wanted to, but because she'd asked him to. Because watching him watch her struggle was unbearable. Because she'd seen the fear in his eyes when she couldn't make it up the stairs without resting twice. A soft knock. "Emma, I'm heading to the site. I left breakfast on the nightstand." "Thank you," she called out, her voice steadier than her body. Silence. Then, "I love you." The words hung in the air. She pressed her forehead against the cool mirror, unable to respond, unable to let him hear the sob building in her throat. After his truck rumbled away, Emma emerged from the bathroom. The breakfast he'd prepared, scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit, sat carefully arranged on a tray. Beside it, a folded piece of paper. "You're not alone in this. Whatever you need, whenever you're ready. D." She crumpled onto the bed, the note clutched in her hand. That afternoon, Daniel sat in his truck outside Dr. Harrison's office in the next town over, 40 minutes from Millbrook. He'd told his crew he had a dentist appointment. In truth, he was here for the third time this week, researching specialists, treatment options, experimental therapies. Mr. Mitchell? The receptionist smiled sympathetically. She'd grown used to his visits. I have those referral packets you requested. He thanked her, taking the thick manila envelope. Inside were names of neurologists in Boston, Philadelphia, even the Mayo Clinic. Treatment plans that cost more than their savings. Clinical trials that might help, might not, might make things worse. His phone buzzed. A text from his foreman. Where are you, boss? Johnson's asking about the Miller project. Another text, this one from his sister in Seattle. Mom's asking about you guys. She heard something from Aunt Linda. Call me. He ignored both, opening his phone's photo gallery instead. Pictures of Emma, laughing at their wedding, covered in flour from a baking mishap, asleep on the couch with their cat, dancing in their kitchen last Christmas. His thumb hovered over the most recent photo, taken just before the symptoms started, before the fear crept into her eyes, before the distance grew between them like a chasm neither knew how to cross. That evening, they ate dinner in separate rooms. Emma at the kitchen table, where she could easily reach the counters for support. Daniel in the living room, giving her the space she'd requested but not wanted. Through the doorway, he watched her struggle to cut her chicken, her hands trembling. Every instinct screamed at him to help, but he knew that would only make her feel weaker. Instead, he cleared his throat. I talked to Harrison today. There's a specialist in Boston, one of the best in the country. I can call tomorrow, see if... Daniel, stop. Emma's fork clattered against her plate. Stop researching. Stop planning. Stop trying to fix this. I'm not trying to fix you. I'm trying to help you. By throwing money we don't have at doctors who might not have answers? He set down his plate, moving to the kitchen doorway. Then what do you want me to do, Em? Watch you suffer? Pretend everything's fine while you can barely walk. While this whole town tears us apart because they'd rather believe we're having problems than accept that something's actually wrong. Her eyes flashed. I want you to respect my choices. I'm not ready to be the town's tragedy case. I'm not ready for the pity, the stares, the endless questions about how I'm feeling. So you'd rather let them think I'm cheating on you? That we hate each other? The question hung between them, heavy and sharp. Emma's shoulders sagged. At least that makes sense to them. At least that's a story they understand. This, she gestured weakly at her body. This is messy and confusing and scary, and I don't know how to explain it when I don't even understand it myself. Daniel crossed the kitchen, kneeling beside her chair. Then let me help you understand. Let me be there with you, not watching from another room. For the first time in weeks, Emma let herself lean into him, her head resting against his shoulder. I'm so scared, she whispered. I know. Me too. Outside, a car slowed in front of their house. Through the window, they could see Mrs. Patterson in the passenger seat, her phone raised, likely taking a photo of Daniel's truck in the driveway at this hour. Tomorrow, there would be new rumors. But tonight, in their kitchen, they held each other while the world outside spun its stories. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of autumn chill that reminded Millbrook residents why they loved small-town life. The farmers' market buzzed with activity, vendors setting up booths of apple cider, pumpkins, and hand-knitted scarves. Emma had insisted on coming. People need to see I'm still here, she'd told Daniel over breakfast. If I hide much longer, they'll never stop talking. He'd argued gently, but the determination in her eyes told him arguing was useless. So he'd helped her into the truck, steadied her as she climbed down at the market, and now walked 3 steps behind her as she navigated the crowd with a walking stick she'd finally agreed to use. But he could see what the others couldn't. The way her left leg dragged slightly with each step, the tremor in her hand when she reached for a jar of honey at Mrs. Chen's booth, the sheen of sweat on her forehead despite the cool air. Emma, my goodness, where have you been? Janet Morris rushed over, her curiosity thinly veiled as concern. We've all been so worried. Is everything? Everything's fine, Emma interrupted, her smile bright and brittle. Just needed some time off. Running a bakery is exhausting, you know. Janet's eyes flickered to Daniel, then back to Emma, clearly expecting more. When nothing came, she leaned in conspiratorially. Well, you look tired, dear. Maybe you should see someone? There's a wonderful therapist in. She doesn't need a therapist, Daniel said, his tone sharp enough to cut. An awkward silence fell. Janet stammered an excuse and hurried away, but not before throwing one more pointed look over her shoulder. You didn't have to do that, Emma murmured. Yeah, I did. They continued through the market, Emma stopping occasionally to chat with vendors who'd known her since childhood. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Surprise at seeing her, thinly veiled questions about her absence, uncomfortable silences when she provided no details. Daniel watched it all, his hands clenched in his pockets, his protective instincts at war with his promise to let her handle things her way. They were at the produce stand when it happened. Emma bent to examine a basket of butternut squash, and her left leg simply gave out. One moment she was standing, the next she was falling, her walking stick clattering uselessly against the cobblestones. Daniel lunged forward, catching her before she hit the ground, his arms wrapping around her waist. The basket of squash toppled, vegetables rolling across the street. I've got you. I've got you. But she was shaking, not from the fall but from humiliation. Around them, the market had gone silent. Every eye was on them, the Mitchells, the couple everyone had been whispering about, now providing fresh fodder for gossip. I'm fine, Emma gasped, trying to stand, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. Daniel, please let me. No. His voice was firm but gentle. No more pretending. No more protecting everyone's feelings but your own. He scooped her into his arms, cradling her against his chest. She was lighter than she should be, he realized. She'd been skipping meals, hiding how little energy she had. Daniel, put me down, she whispered urgently. Everyone's watching. Good. Let them watch. He carried her through the center of the market, past the staring faces and slack jaws, past the phones quickly raised to capture the moment. Mrs. Patterson stood frozen with her bag of apples. Janet Morris had her hand over her mouth. Even the vendors had stopped their sales pitches. Emma buried her face in his shoulder, tears soaking through his flannel shirt. They'll never stop talking now. They were never going to stop anyway, he said quietly, kicking open the door of his truck with more force than necessary. He settled her gently in the passenger seat, buckling her seatbelt with careful hands. Before closing the door, he turned back to the crowd that had followed them to the parking lot. His voice carried across the sudden silence. My wife is sick. She's been dealing with a serious medical condition that she's too damn proud and too damn scared to talk about. But here's the truth, since you all want one so badly. She's not having an affair. I'm not having an affair. Our marriage isn't falling apart. She's just sick, and she needs help, and instead of offering support, this town has spent the last month tearing us down with your assumptions and your gossip. He paused, his jaw tight. So yeah, now you know. Feel better? The silence was deafening. Daniel climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. As they pulled away, Emma finally lifted her head, her face streaked with tears. I'm going to kill you, she said, but there was no anger in her voice. Probably, but at least now they know the truth. I wasn't ready for them to know. I know, but I was ready to stop watching you suffer alone. They drove in silence for several minutes, the market fading behind them. Then Emma reached across the console, taking his hand. Where are we going? She asked quietly. Daniel's grip tightened. Hospital. No more waiting, no more researching, no more being brave. We're getting you help, and I don't care what it costs or what strings I have to pull. For the first time in weeks, Emma didn't argue. Instead, she squeezed his hand back and whispered, Okay. The fluorescent lights of Mercy General's emergency department hummed overhead as Daniel paced the waiting area. It had been 3 hours since they'd admitted Emma, 3 hours of forms and questions and worried looks from nurses who'd clearly noticed the severity of her symptoms. He'd called her mother in Florida, tried to sound calm, failed miserably. He'd texted his foreman that he wouldn't be back to work until further notice. He'd ignored 17 messages and 6 calls from various Millbrook residents, no doubt calling to express concern that was really curiosity. His phone buzzed again. This time he looked. From Jessica, high school friend Daniel, what's going on? Someone posted a video from the market. Is Emma okay? From Tom at the hardware store. Man, I had no idea. Let me know if you need anything. From Pastor Williams, praying for you both. Come by the church if you need to talk. He shoved the phone back in his pocket, just as Dr. Catherine Reynolds emerged through the double doors. She was younger than he'd expected, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that reminded him of Emma. Mr. Mitchell? I'm Dr. Reynolds, the neurologist on call. Your wife is stable, and we've started her on 4 steroids to address the acute inflammation. Daniel's knees nearly buckled with relief. Can I see her? In a moment. First, I need to explain what we're dealing with. She gestured to a quiet corner of the waiting room. Emma has myasthenia gravis, an autoimmune condition where the immune system attacks the connections between nerves and muscles. It's why she's experiencing progressive weakness, particularly in her legs and arms. Is it treatable? Very much so. With the right combination of medications and possibly plasma exchange therapy, most patients see significant improvement. But, Dr. Reynolds' expression grew serious. I need to be honest with you. Emma's condition has progressed further than it should have because she delayed treatment. She admitted she's been symptomatic for at least 3 months. Daniel's hands clenched. She was scared, embarrassed. She didn't want people to know. I understand, but Mr. Mitchell, myasthenia gravis can affect the muscles used for breathing. If we'd waited even another week, this could have become a life-threatening crisis. She paused, letting that sink in. Your decision to bring her in today probably saved her life. The words hit him like a physical blow. He sank into a chair, head in his hands. She's going to hate me for telling everyone, he said quietly. Maybe at first. But she's alive to hate you, which is what matters. Dr. Reynolds offered a small smile. You can see her now. Room 214, second floor. Emma was sitting up in the hospital bed when Daniel entered, and 4-line running into her arm. She looked small against the white sheets, but her eyes were clearer than they'd been in weeks. Hey, he said softly, closing the door behind him. Hey yourself. She gestured to the chair beside the bed. Dr. Reynolds says you made quite the scene in the market. Yeah, well, someone had to. Emma's laugh was watery. Daniel, I saw the video. Mrs. Patterson posted it on the town Facebook page. You basically shouted our private business to the entire market. I know. And now everyone knows I'm sick. I know. And they're probably pitying me right now, which is exactly what I didn't want. I know. He moved to her bedside, taking her hand carefully, mindful of the 4. But you know what else? You're getting treatment. You're going to get better. And if the price of that is dealing with some town gossip, then that's a price I'm willing to pay. Even if you hate me for it. Emma was quiet for a long moment, her thumb tracing circles on the back of his hand. I don't hate you. I'm furious with you, but I don't hate you. Fair enough. Dr. Reynolds said if we'd waited much longer, it could have affected my breathing. That I could have. She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. But we didn't wait. You're here, you're getting help, and you're going to be okay. Daniel's voice cracked. That's all that matters, Em. Not what the town thinks, not what anyone says. Just you getting better. She pulled him closer, and he carefully climbed onto the narrow hospital bed beside her, wrapping his arms around her as she finally let herself cry, not from embarrassment or frustration, but from relief. I was so scared, she whispered against his chest. I thought if people knew, they'd see me differently. Like I was broken or weak or... You're the strongest person I know, Daniel interrupted. But even strong people get sick. Even strong people need help. They stayed like that until a nurse knocked softly and reminded them that visiting hours were ending soon. Daniel reluctantly disentangled himself, pressing a kiss to Emma's forehead. I'll be back first thing tomorrow. Get some rest. Daniel. Emma caught his hand as he turned to leave. Thank you. For caring more about my health than my pride. For being brave when I couldn't be. He squeezed her hand gently. That's what marriage is, Em. Being strong for each other when the other can't be. As he drove back to Millbrook that night, Daniel's phone continued to buzz with messages. This time he read them. From the bakery staff, we've got the shop covered. Take all the time you need. From neighbors, dropping off meals at your house. You shouldn't have to worry about cooking. From former classmates, we didn't know. We're sorry for assuming the worst. The town that had torn them apart with gossip was slowly starting to stitch them back together with support. It wasn't perfect, and there would still be whispers, but maybe, just maybe, some good could come from the truth being out in the open. 3 weeks after Emma's hospitalization, Millbrook's Autumn Festival was in full swing. The main street had been transformed with hay bales, corn stalks, and strings of lights that would stay up through the holidays. Children darted between booths while their parents browsed handmade crafts and seasonal treats. Daniel stood behind the counter of Emma's bakery, their bakery now, as he'd been learning the ropes, boxing up cinnamon rolls for a steady stream of customers. The staff had been incredible, keeping things running smoothly while Emma recovered, but today was special. Today, Emma was coming back. The bell above the door chimed, and the bakery fell silent. Emma walked in using a cane, something she'd accepted as part of her recovery, though Dr. Reynolds said she might not need it in another month or 2. Her face was fuller, healthier. The medication and treatment had worked remarkably well, though she still had good days and bad days. But today was a very good day. Hi everyone, she said, her voice strong and clear. I hear you've been holding down the fort without me." The staff erupted in cheers and applause. Sarah, the assistant manager who'd stepped up during Emma's absence, rushed around the counter to hug her carefully. "We've missed you so much," Sarah said, tears in her eyes. "But don't think you're working today. Boss's orders." She jerked her thumb toward Daniel. Emma raised an eyebrow at her husband. "Boss's orders?" Daniel shrugged, coming around to stand beside her. "Doctor's orders, actually. Light duty only. Which means you can supervise and tell us all what we're doing wrong, but no 12-hour shifts on your feet." "Yet," Emma added with a smile. "No 12-hour shifts yet." Throughout the morning, Millbrook residents filed through the bakery, not just to buy bread and pastries, but to see Emma with their own eyes. Some were awkward, unsure what to say. Others were genuine in their relief and support. Mrs. Patterson was among the first. She approached the counter with uncharacteristic humility. "Emma, dear, I wanted to apologize. I said some things, spread some rumors, that I had no business spreading." She glanced at Daniel. "About both of you. I'm ashamed of myself." Emma's response surprised everyone, including herself. "Mrs. Patterson, I understand. I disappeared without explanation, and people naturally filled in the blanks. But I hope moving forward, this town can be a place where we ask questions instead of making assumptions." The older woman nodded vigorously. "You're absolutely right. And for what it's worth, the ladies at the church have started a meal train for you. Nothing fancy, just casseroles and such, so you don't have to worry about cooking while you're recovering." After she left, Janet Morris came in, then Tom from the hardware store, then Pastor Williams with his family. Each visit brought more offers of help, more genuine concern, more evidence that beneath the gossip and assumptions, Millbrook was still a community that cared for its own. That afternoon, Daniel and Emma closed the bakery early and walked to the town square where the festival was in full swing. Emma moved slowly, stopping frequently to rest, but she refused Daniel's offer to bring the truck around. "I want to walk," she insisted. "I need to remember that I can." They found a bench near the gazebo where a local band was setting up. Emma sank onto it gratefully, and Daniel sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders. "This is nice," she said quietly. "Being out here. Being alive. Scared me there for a while. Scared myself." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I keep thinking about that morning at the market. I was so angry with you for making a scene. And now I realize you saved my life. Not just by getting me to the hospital, but by refusing to let me hide. By loving me enough to risk me hating you." She turned to face him. "I never thanked you properly. For the research, the doctor visits, the late nights planning treatment options. For protecting me even when I wouldn't let you help." Daniel's eyes were suspiciously bright. "That's what you do for the people you love. You protect them, even from themselves sometimes. Even when it makes you the bad guy in their story. Especially then." A group of teenagers walked past, and one of them, a girl Emma recognized from the youth group at church, stopped and turned back. "Mrs. Mitchell? I just wanted to say, my mom has myasthenia gravis too. She was diagnosed last year, and she's doing really well now with treatment. So I'm glad you're okay and stuff." Emma blinked back tears. "Thank you for telling me that. It helps to know I'm not alone." The girl smiled shyly and hurried to catch up with her friends. "See," Daniel said softly, "you being open about this is already helping people, making them feel less alone. Maybe some good can come from all this after all." As the sun set over Millbrook, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, the band began to play. Daniel stood and offered his hand. "Dance with me?" Emma hesitated. "Daniel, I don't know if I can." "Then we'll sway. Or we'll stand here holding each other and calling it dancing." "I don't care." His eyes were warm, full of love and patience and hope. "I just want to hold my wife." She took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. They moved to the music slowly, carefully, her cane propped against the bench behind them. Daniel's arms were steady around her, supporting her weight when her legs grew tired, reminding her with every touch that she didn't have to be strong alone. Around them, Millbrook watched, not with judgment or pity, but with something gentler. Understanding, perhaps. Or maybe just the recognition that everyone struggles, everyone has secrets, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let the people who love you help. That night, as they drove home, Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah at the bakery. 30 orders came in this afternoon. Town festival tomorrow, wants us to cater breakfast. We're back, boss. Emma showed the message to Daniel, who grinned. Guess Millbrook's ready to welcome you back. Not me, Emma corrected, lacing her fingers through his. Us. They're welcoming us back. Because you made sure they knew we're a team. Daniel brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. Always have been, Em. Always will be. As they pulled into their driveway, the porch light glowing warmly in welcome, Emma realized something. She'd spent so much time afraid of being seen as weak that she'd forgotten strength comes in many forms. Sometimes it's standing on your own. Sometimes it's letting someone stand with you. And sometimes, often really, it's having someone who loves you enough to carry you when you can't stand at all, who'll risk the town's judgment and your anger just to make sure you're safe, who'll shout the truth into a crowd of gossips because protecting you matters more than protecting appearances. That was the story Millbrook was telling now. Not of scandal or betrayal, but of love, messy, imperfect, fierce, and real. The kind of love that leaves a town talking for all the right reasons.